so much for joining us. Today I have with me a friend who, I'll tell him how we actually met, because we met before we actually met. So I'll describe that. But Laurie Dillon-Schalk, she is a lover of digital and coffee.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't stop there.
Yeah, but coffee for sure. She's an asker of good questions. She's a sleuth of business problems, identifier of emerging trends, consumer insights, impacts of digital upon consumer behaviors. She's focused on strategy, e-commerce, social media, analytics, consumer insights and planning, social business, social brands, and transformation. And right now you're with DraftFCB.
Yes.
You just started there. What's your title?
I am a planning director.
Planning director.
Focused on digital.
Awesome. Well, listen, first of all, thank you so much for coming by, and I really appreciate it. You know, I know you're a busy lady, and you have family and everything like that, so thanks so much for taking time out. I guess, first of all, explain a little bit about what you're doing right now at Draft.
So DraftFCB is a large advertising agency, and we have a number of clients, excellent clients. Some of them include Mondelez, so Oreo and Thin Stations.
Mm-hmm.
Ontario Tourism, we have Foodland Ontario, and a number of others.
Yeah.
And so what I do, I'm in the strategy department, which in advertising is called the planning department. Mm-hmm. And I help clients plan their digital. Awesome. So it could be helping them monetize, build mm-hmm. client relationship or consumer relationships. It could be e-commerce. There's many different goals in digital, and I help them achieve that goal.
Awesome. Now you mentioned Oreo was one of the clients. I saw something on the ticker today. Draft won an award.
That was in the U.S.
Okay.
They won a big award for the Oreo Goes in the Dark, which they worked with 360i, which is another fabulous agency in the U.S.
Awesome.
On that whole Oreo campaign.
Good. Well, congratulations to the bigger team.
Yeah.
As well. Now, when did you start in this whole digital industry? You know,
a long time ago. I mean, I met my husband online. I was, in the BBS. I was a BBS girl.
Wow.
I've been in digital forever. I mean, I was always in digital. But I think my real career started.
Okay.
I dabbled as a marketer when I was at Kraft Canada, but then I joined IBM. And I joined IBM at the right time. E-commerce was just, exploding. And during that bubble and that burst.
Is that when they were talking about IBM as an e-business? I remember those ads.
Well, IBM at the time switched from hardware software to starting a big consulting division. Mm-hmm. So I was one of the first 100 consultants, and I was on the retail business and CPG business. And later, the nice thing about IBM is if you're there long enough, you can create your own job if there's a demand, right?
Sure.
So there's this huge demand for digital marketing strategy or e-marketing strategy or customer experience strategy. The names have changed, but essentially digital strategy. Mm-hmm. So I launched a practice with another colleague, and that was 8 years of helping clients with business transformation, mostly e-commerce. But then in 2006, we started consulting on social media.
Wow.
And there's only 5 of us in 2006.
And now it's...
And now
there's agencies. And that's all that they're doing. Now, I want to quickly touch on this, otherwise I'll forget it. I think it's kind of a cool story. When we started Third Ocean, or just about when we were starting Third Ocean, my business partner, Carolyn Van and myself, worked out of Starbucks. Young and Eglinton, and there was one day where, because we would go when Starbucks would open, literally, and we would leave when they would close. Mm-hmm. And there was one day when the staff were just giving us cookies and breads and muffins and so on and so forth, and I'm tweeting like crazy about this, I'm getting fed, and you popped up saying, "Oh, where is this? Oh, it's so cool!" And we started chatting back and forth about this coffee experience. And it wasn't your personal handle, I don't think, that I was chatting with, right? You had a coffee.
Oh, Social Wisdom.
Was it Social Wisdom? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But Social Wisdom, and so We might have tweeted back and forth that day, but I don't think we tweeted again until I actually met you. And we finally graduated out of Starbucks. And we nabbed a client. We had a few clients, but one of the clients we had was Bean Oceans. And they actually invited us to work out of their space. They had a big, massive space, so we took up a little corner, a couple of desks, working away. And you just happened to come in the office. I didn't know who you were. I thought you were just a client of theirs or whatnot. And I think someone introduced us.
Yep.
And you said, "You're Karim," and I'm looking at you and I go, "Oh, damn, I don't know who you are. I don't remember you." And then I think you started talking about coffee or whatever. And I'm going, "Oh my goodness, we finally meet." Mm-hmm. And little did I know you are this huge queen. I don't want to say queen. I don't want to, we're all learning.
Yes.
But that you were you were a thought leader in the space that I was trying to get into and trying to, make a footprint of myself. So it was very interesting the way we met and how we actually finally met. So I wanted to kind of get that out of the way. I forgot to say that at the beginning. But you also emailed me this past week, and you're probably one of the only, I guess, guests who've actually done a lot of preparation. You took a look at all the videos, and you said, "Hey, why don't we talk about this, that, and the other?" So let's talk about that. Let's talk about strategy, digital strategy, because I had a similar conversation with a guest prior to this, Mark Farmer, who's right now the digital strategist at York University.
Great.
Came from Intuit, and before that was at the Royal Ontario Museum. Great gentleman. And he had his views on social strategy or digital strategy. But you and I talk about that. What is, let's start at the beginning.
I love that. Because it took me a long time to understand what a strategy is. It's like mission, vision, there are hard concepts to really get. And strategy is just the difference between where you are today, where you want to go, and then there's this gap, right? And strategy and the plan is how to address the gap. And so I try, every client I go to, people that are confused or junior staff that still don't understand strategy, once I explain it to them, it's the plan that addresses the gap, then they kind of have this aha moment. Now, the one thing that I liked about my experience at JWT, I worked with this great guy, Jack Perrone, who helped pull apart my strategy and my plan. So I used to put them together, and when you put a strategy and a plan together, it becomes a plan, right? So a strategy becomes, here's what I'm going to do in phase 1, etc.
That's right.
But if you hold yourself off from doing that, and you focus on, how is this going to achieve your objectives, and sort of more what's the overall end goal, that's like the strategy, and then you spend a lot of time on the plan.
Yeah.
So that's
interesting, because, and so, when we hear about strategy, and we're talking to clients about strategy, to them they're thinking, I'm going to be delivered a plan that is going to tell me how I'm going to get from A to B on a monthly or yearly basis, rather than here's the sort of view of your brand and where we think it needs to go to accomplish your goals and objectives.
That's right.
Right? Which is very interesting, because that's what a lot of clients they expect, A to B to C to D. When in social, it's like, what if something happens with a certain platform? What if something happens in the economy, or just in general in society? What if things get tweaked a little here and there? How do we know that what we're going to do today is actually going to work tomorrow?
Right.
And how do we? And then insights come into play.
Right.
I'd like you to talk about that. What role, or how does, I guess, your plan now? How is your plan impacted by analytics and insights? And then how often do you revisit your plan?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about being in an advertising agency is that when you do a new TV commercial or radio spot, you don't have to revisit what you already did. But in digital, you have existing assets, and half your plan bloody well better be about optimizing what you have already, right?
Sure.
So in order to be in a position where you know how to fix existing assets, you have to do a really comprehensive review. Plus, the fact that emerging trends and consumer behaviors and the way we buy based on, you know, how digital impacts that purchasing decision, that's changing really fast. So when you do a strategy, you've got to do a very detailed audit up front. So you look at the consumer, you look at the competition, the market, you try and get a perspective on emerging trends and feed that in.
Sure.
And that's got to start where you are.
Yeah.
Analytics is often a really big part in that, right? Because it helps you understand if you're doing social listening or if you're analyzing the performance of a website, helps you understand where to fix things.
Yeah.
And then that informs, there's a few other things you do, but that informs your overall strategy.
Interesting. And in terms of, you know, once you have a plan in place and you're starting to execute on that, how often do you revisit?
You know, I like regular measurement.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is people talk about how frequently they should measure. So some people, because we can, they want to see real-time measurement. And that works for some decision-making, like real-time decision-making or real-time changes works for some things.
But what does it work for? Let's talk about what does it work for.
Okay, so for instance, we launched a YouTube, TV commercial on YouTube.
Yeah.
Not ideal, not, you know, YouTube content, but that happens. What we did is once we launched it, we did social listening to understand how are people describing the commercial. So in this case, it was a commercial with the devil in it.
Okay.
We thought that people would use the word devil, but they actually used the word Satan to describe the TV commercial, right?
Yeah.
So we then went back and changed all our tags. In the end, 20% of our traffic came from non-paid sources. Well, you know, that's like, it's not free because there's effort in doing that, but that's a great example of using real-time data. And there's probably better examples out there.
Sure. And so when okay, so let's now talk about when is real-time social listening not? When do you not engage with that?
So, you know, websites or, if it's a campaign and it's short, then you're going to want frequent measurement because I always like optimizing.
You want to optimize it.
Right.
Absolutely.
But if it's a regular website, if you're looking at daily traffic information, you're looking at the bark. Like you're not even looking at the trees for the forest, you're now like looking right at the tree.
Sure.
So I try and, get people to pull back from some real-time dashboards and understand that if we want to see patterns, you have to pull back and look over.
Allow enough time
to
go by.
Especially with seasonality, or if you can't see. One social listening report I did, I was able to show, even though they thought the brand was seasonal, I was able to show that the conversation happened all year round, and that they thought it was seasonal, but the consumers were talking about it. Right, so that's the kind of thing where you got to pull back and see where the pattern or no pattern is.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
We're halfway through, and I want to switch and talk about some things that have been happening. In the news and with social media recently. So you wrote a blog post on the 17th, and it was titled 3 lessons on how to behave in social media during a disaster. Now, I don't want to pick apart, each point, but in general, this was. So, why don't you lay the foundation? Why did we write, or why did you write this?
I wrote this. Well, first of all, it was about Boston.
Okay.
And Boston, Connecticut, those things weigh heavily on everyone's minds.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write about it. But at the same time, what's interesting is, I kept my personal feelings to Facebook, but I still wanted to write a blog post.
Sure.
But one of the, I write a lot of playbooks, so I help a lot of brands structure and strategize their social management. So
can we pause there?
Yeah.
What's a playbook?
Playbook. So playbook is everything you need to know to manage a branded community. Okay. So it contains your content strategy at a very high level. It contains your posting guidelines. It contains the escalation guidelines. It contains how you're going to manage as a project team and who's on that project team.
There you go. Perfect.
Channel strategy, brand, tone, and voice. So it's like a big book on how to play.
Perfect.
So
sorry to interrupt.
No,
Continue.
that's great. So even though I do big playbooks and have escalation procedures, etc., I didn't realize that during Boston, I didn't even think of the situation where you'd have to tell your brand to be quiet. And you know, these big tragic events are very sensitive. And so, I mean, I saw this great quote by on marketing, which is Scott Stratton, and he said, if you have scheduled brand tweets, you should change that. You should turn them off.
Interesting.
Which interesting, some tools won't let you turn it off.
True.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because on the surface and immediately when you see that, you go, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Let me turn that off. But taking the time to sit back and watch and listen and understand, I don't want this to be a debate on is scheduled tweets good or not good.
No.
There's a place for that.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I think the message really is not that it's scheduled and non-scheduled, but really it's probably a marketing message that is scheduled.
Well, it was a trigger for me to think about, we better have, you know, we better watch how we're behaving in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Perfect. So let's talk about that, the behavior of brands during a disaster. Now, it's interesting because at first I was in a place where, and I had a couple of scheduled tweets out, so I was going, man, you know what, I'm in a place where I actually can't access my tool to shut it off or to delete them. And I said, well, I'm just going to, whatever, right? Because I thought, nobody follows Karim anyways, so no one's going to see my tweets. Obviously, Scott Stratton's got, I don't know, 1 million followers or whatever. He's got, you know, people that are going to stumble upon his tweets. But my issue is that there's probably disasters that happen every single day around the world. And we are now in a world that is not local anymore. We're very international. People see my tweets in Africa, across the country, in England, here in Canada as well. So when do we stop marketing? Or when do we stop scheduling? Really, when do we stop marketing? Because not more than a week later, hundreds of people in Bangladesh lost their life making clothes that families like yours and mine and others purchase.
Right, and no one...
And really, I mean, yes, it was sad and everything, but really there was no one tweeted out, or no one that I know, tweeted out, if you have scheduled brand tweets today, turn them off.
I think, you know, you could certainly overanalyze this and look at, you know, are Canadians reacting to it and, you know, does it help your brand? But I don't think that's a very human approach to it. I mean, part of the reason that we use social is that we are humanizing the brands, and there's got to be a call on whether or not this personally is affecting the people that work for the brand. And if you feel like you do or don't want to say something, I think it's okay to say a little bit, but you can't use it as a way to market your own goods.
So you're talking more about, I think we talked about it when we were making coffee, newsjacking.
Oh, hijacking.
Hijacking, yeah.
Well, and some brands have good intentions. Epicurious.
Said Oreo has done that. Right now, they didn't do it in this case with Boston. But Oreo won their award by hijacking the blackout, right? They got buzzed by...
I don't think that's hijacking. I think they were responding to real-time events, right? They were responding to what was going on. Hijacking is well, it's like using your hashtag for marketing purposes. Now, Epicurious, they said, we feel sorry about Boston, and oh, by the way, here's a blueberry muffin recipe.
Oops.
Right? So that didn't go over very well. So there's got to be a finesse with how you do it. At the agency, we said we don't feel like tweeting about advertising. There's a runner in all of us. We didn't use the...
Was that a planned tweet? Because I saw that.
No, it wasn't planned. That happened...
That was just organic?
That was yeah.
I guess as organic as you can get.
That happened on a streetcar.
You tweeted that?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw your personal account retweet that. Like, oh, that's
Did you notice I didn't use the hashtag?
There was no hashtag in it.
But, so that's the thing, like,
Now,
there's no need to use it.
Were you thinking of that? Should I use it? Should I not use it? Or was
No,
it?
because I didn't really want to.
So it was more the Laurie saying, you know what, it doesn't, I don't need people to actually see this necessarily, but it's something that I feel as a brand and maybe as a mother of a runner or a friend of a runner, it feels right.
It's a human response. Right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is it did get a lot of traction.
Now what about those people, Laurie, that, because I saw, who is that gentleman who wrote, oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't write down his name. But he said, interesting that people with less than 1,000 followers are telling me what to do. Because someone told him to shut down his scheduled tweets. And he didn't. He used to work for IBM. He's an author. He's... Yeah, the name is on the tip of your tongue. You can see it.
Does his name start with a B?
I can't remember his name. That's so sad, isn't it? But someone will correct us. Someone will tweet it. No.
Okay.
No. He used to work... Yeah, he's... What? Okay, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it.
I don't know that one.
Anyways.
I think we've got to stop.
But then I saw, like, there was, I think a friend of ours, or people at least that we know, he was on your panel, Mark Evans. He had some scheduled tweets go out.
Yeah.
And I saw people tell him, hey, shut off your scheduled tweets.
But people have to realize sometimes tools don't allow you to turn them off, right? So I talked to Andrew Jenkins, brilliant guy.
Yep,
He's been on the show.
Yep.
So he talked about some tools don't allow you to do that. So what you have to do is go into the tool and actually edit the tweet that's supposed to go out because you can't delete it.
Yeah.
And the other thing with the 1,000 follower comment, I think we've got to stop attaching value to people that have a lot of followers, unless they're celebrities or...
GK.
Oh, Guy
Kawasaki.
Kawasaki. Yeah.
And then a friend of ours kind of...
I think that's sad if he doesn't want to take direction from people that have less than 1,000 followers. Because, it's about a human response. The challenge is, we are now entering an era where there's a lot of like cyber mobs and vigilantism, like mini anonymous players all over the place. And you've got to be very careful because people are attacking each other. Like Adria Richardson.
Yeah.
So I sent her a note.
Yes.
I sent her a direct note.
Yeah.
Not direct mail, but almost like a reply because she wasn't following me.
Yeah.
I got attacked by about 7 or 8.
What were you saying?
I just said, well, hey, good for you for standing up.
Yeah.
Now then, the more I learned, I thought, probably should have done.
So give her just a quick, she is that lady who was at the conference.
She was at a Python conference.
Yep.
And she stood up for, not wanting to hear disparaging comments.
About women.
Right. And the more the story kind of unfolded, she took a picture and she floated it online, and she probably shouldn't have done that. But there seems to be no room for mistakes for anyone. Right?
Yeah, and that's what pisses me off. Is
I
that
do too. I'm pissed off.
And you know what? Really, and another thing that upsets me, because you know what? First thing people want, everyone talks about your brand should be human. Well, guess what? Humans make mistakes.
Exactly.
And I think they should be forgiven.
I totally agree.
And then number 2, I don't agree with, so there's one thing about saying, hey, this might be a good idea to turn off your marketing tweets. It's another thing to call out people and do that. Because, again, there could be something with the tools or the accessibility to change things, but it's also like it's not a mind your own business thing, but it's like if you are going to now look at me and say don't do this, well now you've opened the door for me to look at you from now until eternity, and any mistake you make,
that's right,
I'm now going to hold you to that same standard.
Right.
And I don't, and it's easier now to call people out.
Yeah.
Because, I've seen Scott, I don't want to pick on Scott.
No, but you know what?
Hesse, let's talk about our friend Hesse.
Well, just before you do that, I think one of the reasons I wrote this blog post was I write, I do playbooks all the time.
Yeah.
Here's a scenario, I didn't even think of that. Like,
sure.
I just can't imagine,
There's nothing to put in a playbook.
I still can't imagine, bombing. You know,
No.
and so I was admitting, you know what, like as good as I think my playbooks are, I missed something.
And I don't think you missed it. It's not something you don't play. Okay, you know, you can't plan for this source.
Yeah.
It's one thing if your building is on fire, you've got a fire escape.
Right.
Because you know what to do. But if there's a disaster, you don't. How do you measure the magnitude? And it's like, how do I, as a human, respond on behalf of a brand?
Mm-hmm.
Or even how does a human? You know, it's the same thing that I talk to my wife about when a family member passes away, or a member of someone else's family passes away. That's a good friend. It's like, this happens every day, but I still don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't know how to express myself. How do I say sorry? What do I say?
You say, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Right.
But I bet if try tweeting that. Oreo says, I don't know what to say.
Oh, well.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like there's no... I think we're in a situation now where everyone can track everybody, that there's almost a no-win situation that I think brands now are like, you know, especially smaller ones. It's like, do I go on social? Do I not go on social? Do we be active? Do we not? It's, you know, they take a look at these incidents that happen once in a lifetime and use that as a barometer of should we even play in the sandpit.
Yeah.
If all the kids are going to kick sand in our face for us making a small mistake.
Yeah.
Or making a mistake that we didn't intend to.
Think about managing a brand and how hard it is to get, you know, that your client or the people that behold the brand to accept the risks associated with that. That you're gonna make a few mistakes. You might, you know, get jumped on like that. But you know, that is what being social is about. You've got to take some more risks and but be guided by some kind of playbook.
That's true.
Yeah.
And is the response... Why was... Actually, let me ask you this. This has nothing to do with social, but why was the social response to Bangladesh different than Boston? Do you feel?
I think there's lots of points of view. I think Boston feels like our backyard, and we had Canadians in the marathon.
Yeah.
It's very close to home, and you know, there's lots of friends and families in Boston. Bangladesh does feel removed. Doesn't mean, and it's a horrible tragedy, on the spot, right? But
yeah, and maybe it's not a fair question to ask, but it was an interesting thing to observe for me.
And it happened on Sunday, didn't it?
I can't remember.
Okay.
But everyone's online all the time.
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
I'm more so during the week than on the weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But again, Boston happened on a Monday. Was it a holiday in the U.S.? Again, Boston, it was a big event.
Yeah, it was huge. It was a marathon.
It was a marathon as well. But I mean, there's
and there's video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think my point is, because it happened in an area whereby the accessibility to mobile devices and all the apps on there and the ability to share all that content made it that much more emotional.
It felt like we were there. Like, so we got videos, we got, people were analyzing photographs. So you saw when Boston happened, we all knew right away. Then Reddit became the center for, you know, diagnosing what was happening.
Yeah.
And then Reddit went down. Then what was interesting is I saw a lot of people taking photos and circling images and trying to sort of, you know, help the police or try and identify some theories.
Well, the community on Reddit identified the make of the hat and the backpack.
Yeah. It was incredible. It was incredible crowdsourcing.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? We're almost halfway through 2013.
Yeah.
The weather's finally improving. Where do you see brands and social moving? Because you're right there, right?
Yeah.
You're right in front. You know, I'm just kind of getting started here with Third Ocean, right? But you're right in the front. You're working with the big brands, with the, you know, and you guys are really setting the pace for where social goes and how brands and social move forward. Where do you see things?
Well, so the stuff that is getting a lot of traction on the strategy work that I do is the playbook is really helpful. Like there's been lots of social efforts, but nothing that's structured or not structured well enough.
Yeah.
And for some brands, they're very nervous. They need this assurance of how are you going to act in a live situation? How are you going to respond?
Yeah.
And we would like to think that brands are only responding to what's happening, but the truth is a lot of the messages will be planned in advance. It's almost like brand journalism. So for that portion of scheduling, there's got to be a lot of structure to it. So there's that. Analytics. There was a great presentation by IBM. This fellow Eek-Sock, I think his handle is at Eek-Sock, E-E-K-Sock.
All right.
It might be socks. And he said that the analytic quotient in a company is around 25%. What he means by that is only 25% of people and organizations really get the numbers. And one of the things, spend a lot of time on is I'm trying to get more people to calculate the return on their ideas. So I think that's a huge opportunity. Yeah.
And how would you? What does that calculation look like? I'm curious.
Well, really, it starts with understanding how people measure success. And what's interesting is
that's another half an hour conversation.
Another half an hour. Yeah, exactly. So those, analytic strategy. The last thing I would say is I call my work digital strategy, but I find by calling it digital strategy, it is limiting for me because my strategy affects corporate strategy. It affects overall strategy. And so I really am waiting for the day where we drop this moniker of
and
digital.
Call it strategy.
Just call it strategy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of come together.
Yeah.
Nice. Any parting shots, Laurie?
No, thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. People should connect with her.
Well,
tell them.
Comments. I would love comments on the YouTube video. And subscribe, right?
On this video,
where's the subscribe button? Up here?
It's
or up
if you're
there?
watching it. It changes all the time.
It's up
but
there.
take a look around. Take a look around. But if they want to chat with you and learn about you and what you're doing, what's your blog?
Twitter is the best way to reach me. It's funny. My voicemail at Draft says, "Please send me an email or tweet me," because I hate voicemail.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Twitter's the best way.
And we'll put your Twitter handle.
Great.
Here.
Down below.
Down below. That's right.
Do you know what I'm doing? Is most people record YouTube videos and they don't pretend that they're sitting in a box.
They're in a screen.
We're in a box.
We are.
So we play with the space.
Nice. So follow her on Twitter. Check out her blog as well, socialwisdom.ca. And if you drink coffee, she's a lady that will help you understand what it is that you're drinking. Thank you so much, Laurie. Again, for coming. Again, my name is Karim Kanji. You can follow me on Twitter, at Karim Kanji. You can also go check us out online at thirdocean.com. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon. Bye-bye.